So we are now starting our discussion of the topic of social welfare, and the first thing, social welfare and social choice. And the first thing I'd like to do here is to define the concept of a social welfare function, which in our textbook, Maskell, Winston, and Green, is defined page 825. We define the social welfare function, W, which is defined over a vector of utilities of all individuals in society. Assuming I individuals, we have a profile of individual utilities, and our welfare function aggregates these individual utilities into social utilities. So the problem of a social planner or a policymaker will be to maximize our social function such that the profile of underlying utilities from U1 to UI, this profile is in the utility possibility set U. So in this approach, the utility numbers assigned or utility levels assigned to individuals are taken seriously. And this allows for the interpersonal comparability of individual utilities. So the social welfare function will reflect the distributional value judgments made that are made by a policy planner or a social policymaker or social planner regarding the trade-offs, the kind of optimal trade-offs that are made between the utility levels experienced by individual members of society. This social welfare function, by the way, is also known as a Bergson-Samuelson social welfare function because it was first, this approach to welfare economics was first developed by Bergson and Samuelson in the 30s and in the 40s. And again, the key takeaway point here is that we're aggregating individual utilities and we are allowing for interpersonal comparison of individual utilities. So let's discuss different kinds of social welfare functions reflecting different distributional judgments made regarding the trade-offs of individual utilities and the distribution of utility in society. The utilitarian function is a social function which simply sums up individual utilities experienced by individuals in society. The indifference surfaces are straight lines, so if we draw in a two-person situation, we would have indifference surfaces like this. So the problem of a social planner here would be to maximize the total amount of utility experienced in society. And we can see here that increases or decreases in individual utilities translate into identical increases or decreases in social utility. So it is often said that this utilitarian social welfare function is neutral towards the distribution of utility in society. It does not really matter where this utility is coming from as long as total utility is being maximized. The second utility function that I'd like to talk about here is the maximin function, which takes the form of the utility experienced by the worst off individual in society. So it's the lesser of all, the lesser of the profile of utilities of all individuals in society. The social planning problem becomes one of maximizing the utility of the worst off individual. So this is some kind of a Rawlsian social function. The indifference surfaces take the form of an L shape, like this, and it's very easy to understand that the increase in the utility of one individual, for example here individual 1, will not increase social welfare, will not take you to a higher indifference surface to the extent that it does not also increase the utility of person 2, and vice versa. And finally, we have the generalized utilitarian social welfare function, which takes the form that it is equal to the sum not of individual utilities, but rather the sum of a function g, which is defined over individual utilities, where the function g is concave and increasing. So the point here is that unlike in the utilitarian social welfare function, where increases and decreases of individual utility translate into identical changes in the social utility, here we attach decreasing social weight to successive units of individual utility. The indifferent surfaces look like this. So they are no longer straight lines. Now, in all of these social welfare functions, you will note that we take the utility numbers assigned to individuals very seriously. A separate concept, which is that of social welfare functional, does not take the utility at its cardinal value. So the social welfare functional assigns a social rational preference relation F, which is defined over a profile of individual rational preferences. So we have the preferences of individual 1, individual 2, all the way up to individual I. And to this profile of preferences, which are basically just rankings of social alternatives, we can assign a social preference, social ranking. There's a separate definition in the textbook, definition 22D1, where the social welfare functional is defined over the profile of individual utility functions and not preferences. So we have a function that looks like this. But in both cases, and this first definition here is found in chapter 21, this is definition 21C1. In both cases, the social welfare functional is a social ranking of alternative. It's a preference relation. It is not a utility level or a social utility level.